That was a brilliant beginning to the second day of Ahmedabad International Literature Festival. Before we begin the sessions, I would like to thank our patron, Gujarat Tourism. We are thankful for your unending support in organizing this great literature festival of 2 days. We are even thankful to our silver sponsor, GMDC, for helping us putting up a great show together. We are also thankful to our venue partner, CEE, Center of Environment and Education, for lending their beautiful campus for this great purpose. Thank you. So beginning with the first session of 2 days, the session topic is a confluence of genres, writing stories that move and matter. Whenever we talk about storytelling, what do? The first thing that we do is ask, what kind of stories do you like? Do you like folk tales? Do you like ghost stories? Do you like suspense thriller? Do you like tall tales? Parables? There's a plethora of options when it comes to storytelling. And today's panel of guests are going to discuss just that, right? Isn't it a great start to a literature festival, talking about stories, stories that matter, stories that influence, stories that can bring reforms, stories that can actually make a change. So, without much ado, I would like to call upon the panelists to take their places on the stage. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Azeem Uddin, Mr. Prasun Roy, Ms. Shraddha Ramani, Dr. Manisha Saxena, and Mr. Nivid Desai. Kindly take your places. Mr. Azeem Uddin is Amazon acclaimed, one of the youngest best-selling authors of India, content creator, life enthusiast, public speaker, and an ardent researcher. He is a working professional in the IT domain. He has received the Best Student of University Awards, Male Chancellor's Trophy for Best Overall Performance. Recently, he has presented his research paper in an IEE conference. He has profound interest in writing research papers. Being a writing enthusiast, he has written 3 books: Deep Realization, Perfect Goodness of Ghost, Unbelievable Transformations. Dr. Manisha Saxena is a novelist, pediatrician, YouTube travel, blogger, classical singer, and person of many talents. After the debut success of Natal Fall, a contemporary fiction with a classic bend, she has penned the bestseller crime thriller Blue Jeans. Her poems and articles have been published in the Times of India, Outlook Traveler magazine, and Citizen Journalist, CNN, IBN, and an anthology titled Pause and Pen. She has even received Women's Pride Award for outstanding performance in the field of literature. Ms. Shraddha Ramani hails from the city of Nawabs, Lucknow. She is a bilingual writer, poet, and educationist, a postgraduate in English literature, public administration, and political science. Shraddha holds a degree in education with gold medal. She is currently pursuing PhD in political science from Sabarmati University, Ahmedabad. She is also a certified psychological counselor. She is a political science facilitator and heads the social science department of Shanti Asiatic School. She has been teaching since 15 years. An avid reader, she has recited her poetry on various platforms. Her radio program, Zindagi Ke Zaroke Se, also airs every Monday on radio channel of IIT Gandhinagar. She has even published several books, Hindi as well as in English. Her recent book in English, that is A Beautiful Mess, is a super hit amongst fans. Our next guest is Mr. Prasun Roy. Mr. Prasun Roy is an eminent personality in the field of literature and in the field of writing stories of different genre. He's an author by passion, and he has written books in varied genres, non-fiction, biography, and fiction, you name it, and Sir is like here. He's the best person to talk about the genres of the novels. So without taking much of the time, I would like to pass on the onus to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first session of the second day of Ahmedabad International Literature Festival. Before we begin, let us set up an understanding of what do we mean by genre. Genre, as we know, is a French word. It loosely translates to kind or sort or category. One thing that I would like to establish is if we set it in a mathematical formula, genre is theme plus tone, right? Theme plus tone equals genre. One thing that all Indians love talking about is Bollywood, right? And one movie that Bollywood hails as being among the greatest of all time is Sholay. Think about Sholay. One movie that almost all of us have seen multiple times. If you think about Sholay, that movie encompasses virtually every genre that there is. If you think of romance, if you think of suspense, if you think of thrillers, if you think of revenge, if you think of adventure, a comedy and a tragedy, both at the same time. All of these are categories of literature. All of these are categories of art and writing. Today we are joined by an esteemed panel of speakers who not only belong to different genres of literature, but also belong to different genres of life. We have a doctor, a veteran educator, an entrepreneur, and a researcher and an IT professional. What binds all of them is their love for stories, their love for writing. And let us know from them, what do we mean when we say that we write stories that move and stories that matter? Let's give them a huge round of applause to welcome all of them to AILF on the second day, the first session. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, to be here. To begin with, could you please tell us what led you to the genre that you have chosen in the field of your work? Ma'am, you have written in the domain of thrillers, you have written in the domain of historical fiction as well. Shraddha ji, I know, is a perfectionist when it comes to slice of life, heartfelt writing. Prasun ji is a biographer. And Azeem ji is a gothic fiction writer, which is so fascinating. If you could all tell us where did this fascination of your genre of choice come from, and how has the journey been so far?
Hello. Thank you, Nivid, so much for introducing the session with a very interesting question on genre. And at the outset, let me thank Ahmedabad International Literature Festival and founder Uma Shankar ji for providing us the stage and opportunity to reach out to the readers from all over Gujarat and the country as well. And we have seen some of the international students too. So talking of genre and how did my journey begin, I think for me it started very early. I mean, as early as I can remember, it started from Grandma's Tales. I mean, the family I belonged to, where all the three women, my grandmom, my mom, and my elder sister, they were some sort of storytellers. I remember from the very beginning, I was fascinated by, and at that time we had a culture when we were small of bedtime stories. I don't know whether it's still prevalent because the times have changed, reading has changed, and the lifestyles have changed. But at that time, storytelling was a norm. And especially for children, either it's a food time or lullaby or bedtime, the stories were very important. And in some way, they inculcated a culture within the baby and growing up, so that things genuinely were introduced in the person. So my grandmom was so much into storytelling. I think later on I realized that the Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew, she used to tell the Hindi form of it. Jamila Jan and Mustri Jan. They were two sisters, and she was the Indianized version of it, she used to narrate. And of course, stories of princesses, fairies, and that very important. My elder sister, she used to tease me, and actually that sibling thing, you know, she loved that I would cry listening to a story. So she would narrate the Goldilocks one. Oh, वो लड़की जंगल में गई, पापा का हाथ छूट गया और वो खो गई. And I used to cry, and she used to love seeing me in tears. So that was the time that stories, I fell in love with stories. And somehow the stories were within me. Although later on I pursued a medical career, I am a pediatrician by profession, but stories always had a very warm place in my heart. So it started very early for me, and later on as I grew up, I contributed to my school and college journals and started writing blogs for the Citizen Journalist. And of course, there was a keen desire to put forth my own book. So in 2016, Natal Fault was born, my first novel, which was a contemporary fiction with a classic bent as they have introduced. And now, this year, in 2022, Vishwakarma Publications, they have published Blue Jeans. And my literary agent, Mr. Sohail Mathur, has just arrived to cheer us up. And Blue Jeans is, by God's grace, it's doing well. It's a thriller, it's a suspense thriller set in Goa, being loved by readers of all ages. And so that's what. Okay, thank you so much.
Manisha ji said it all. Good morning, Nivid. She said that right from, childhood. Now, if I tell you, few days ago, I myself did not know this because when we are children, we do a lot of things which we do not realize. My mom said to me around 21 days ago that your story writing career began when you were a 2-year-old. And I asked how. She said you never slept without a story. And it was a painstaking thing for both of us, my parents. And many of the times, Mama said for vacations, she used to send me to Nani's place just because she did not want to narrate the story. And when I asked her the other day that I seriously do not remember that, but she said that right from 2 until you started reading yourself, you every day wanted a story, and every day it has to be different one. I would never be agreeing, or I would never be adjusting to what I've heard before. And I believe I started reading some mature fiction, because generally what happens is we give some sort of, for our age, if I talk about Chacha Chaudhary, Champak, and these things were given to children, and everybody used to get fascinated. And I was one crazy soul. I used to read Amrita Pritam, Shivani, and I used to read different kind of psychologists and all those things when I was in grade 6. So everybody used to, many of the people who were around me in my class also, I remember in class 8, they used to make fun of me. They used to say, "Tab to ye flex word tha nahi. This is a new lingo, so now I can use it." They said ki ye sirf show ke liye padti hai. She doesn't understand a word. But I know I did understand. And when I started creating stories, my first book came up 3 years ago. And many of the serious stories are there in that book. The other book is more serious than that. The name is Syahi. When Syahi came up, people asked, "Acha, ink ki wajah se?" No, it is Syahi because it is Syah. Life is not white. Life is not black. Life lies somewhere between the gray shade. So I always try to write gray shade, because right from my childhood, I've read gray. You call it a choice. If you give me a book which is having all romance, lovey-dovey things, I'll say, "Do you call it a book?" And the people, they do troll me. They do troll me. You do not like the books which are liked by 10 million people? Then my only answer is that I do not want to be that one in 10 million people. I want to be one. And I like that one. And recently, my family has started making fun of mine, because many of the stories of mine, they have ending in something like that. Because death is an eternal truth. You cannot go away with that. So many of the stories are there in which I have portrayed that the male protagonist died or the female protagonist died. So my family has started commenting कि the pen is in Shraddha's hand, तो अभी लाशें बिछाएगी. And I'm taking it as very good compliment कि चलो ठीक है, कोई तो है जो कागज़ पे लाशें बिछा रहा है और मैं तो कागज़ पे ही बिछा रही हूँ. So thank you so much for this. And upcoming books are also there. We'll talk in the session. Over to Prasun.
Thank you, Shraddha, and thank you, Ahmedabad International Literary Festival, for this wonderful session. I think the ladies have said the crux of it, like how it all begins. I think for a child, the child's mind is always very imaginative, and that is where stories begin. So for all of us, I think it begins with a fairy tale or a folk tale, and that is how the love for stories grow. It happened to me in a similar way through grandparents and then through books. And what I even try is like when I see my children, they are young, they are 6 years old or 7 years old, both of them. And we try to, form stories while talking. And during the lockdown periods also, we were creating characters in our minds and creating a fairy tale story. So, then they are writing that story down or creating pictures out of them, doing a painting, and that is how that love can be inculcated inside a child, and which grows further down. Like when I was then in my teens, Ruskin Bond came in, and that created magic. And talking about genres, I think I'm a person who, love to write what I feel confident about, and that is how different genres happen to me. I began with writing for children's fiction, and yes, of course, Suhail Mathur, like she said that he's one of the greatest literary agents over here. He had a push behind me, and going on, I had worked in, paranormal stories. I worked for non-fiction, biographies. My latest book, which is A Samurai Dream of Azad Hind, is a biography of Sri Raj Bihari Bose, a person who was behind the Indian National Army. So genres are something which I think remains in your mind. The story is something which you want to say, and if you are confident about it, you can say, and that would be, a part of a genre. But yes, a broad classification, I would say, is the genre which is fiction and non-fiction. So fiction is something which we all love reading, but there is a stark difference between non-fiction and fiction also. So when you move on to non-fiction, there are people who are nowadays, you see people love reading non-fiction. So that is where, you have to write those non-fiction stories in a way which inspires younger generations to read them also. So that is where the importance of varied genres come into play. So that's my take.
Hello, Power people. A very pleasant morning to you all. Happy Sunday. So this is such a self-efficating and self-nurturing space that we have created today, and we are sharing with each other, isn't it? Happy and smiling faces, full of blissful vibrance and vibration alignment. What else we could ask for, right? So my name is Azeem Uddin, Dhruv Ratan awardee, Amazon acclaimed best-selling author, researcher, life enthusiast, and public speaker. So today I am super elated and extremely ultra pumped, to be here. Because yes, it is that International Literature Festival that is having that benign importance with regard to authors, readers, writers, I think all the bibliophiles. So my authordom journey started when I was in my second year of BTech. I have completed my BTech CSE from Galgotias University, Noida. And I was in my second year. We were having a lot of pressure, and it all started when our own faculties pumped us to write research papers. So for me, it just started from non-fiction, and then it just switched. I have written 3 fictional books by now, and these are all those 3 fictional books. And now even I'm planning to write my non-fiction book. That would be a self-help one. But the crux, part and parcel here of life to say is that we never know how this life is gonna be really blissful for all of us. We never know the super powerfulness of words, but I would say words are super powerful. They are the brick and mortar of our life. And even one quote that I personally believe in, it is that man may come and man may go, but the fragrance of the character of a good person remains forever. And it is only possible with the help of speaking and writing. Because that is how we just communicate, that is how this law of state transference works. And it is both sided. Even it is just like a crystal clear, robust communication between sender and receiver. Talking about genres, yes, I have written 3 fictional books. First is Deep Realization. It is based on parent-child relationship. Like we know that today, most of the parents, they are really ready to provide enough luxuries to their children, but they are not spending quality time with them. But I think this is the need of the hour. And not only parents, it is again having that both impact, that partial impact to children as well and to parents as well. Like both have to be understanding their own roles and responsibilities. So that is the first one, that is Deep Realization. And it is a story of a carefree, duty-less son and his own inner transformation, self-transformation has been portrayed in the story. And it is giving us a definite message of self-transformation, self-transcendence paradigm. That transformation is not just about our bodily gestures or our physical appearance, but it is about our inner quality attributes. It is about our skill metrics. And then my second book is this one, that is Perfect Goodness of Ghost. Even I get great reviews for this one because it is a gothic fiction. It is a crime thriller novel and people loved it. And this is the great opinion of today's youth, like that's why they love fictional books. That because of the interesting and catchy storyline, how they would be getting that fruitful and fruit-bearing message, I think that is a big deal. Because readers just want to get the message in a brighter tone, but they also want that spice, they also want that mixed emotions. So I just had a lot of fun writing this. Crime thriller, it's a crime thriller, gothic one. Then my last one is Unbelievable Transformation, and that became the bestseller first. So my authordom journey, it has been full of topsy-turvy ways. My third book became the bestseller first, and then both the first and second ones. So Unbelievable Transformation, it is a pirate story, and it is giving a message of, again, transformation. Like, tough times never last, but tough people do. So here, I would just love to raise my opinion about genres, that it is with the help of target audience, with the help of genres, we are able to target our audience and even they would be lovingly accepting that. Only it is not so that every person would be loving that same genre. Every genre is not about universalness, but it is about soothing purity. It is about what reader has to be just getting it, if he or she is getting it or not, and that is our own wholesome duty. That's why lastly I would just love to say that literature is eternal. Today also we read so many books that have just come up and whose authors are not alive. That's why literature is eternal. It is not short-lived, and we are here to make it possible. So thank you so much all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about fiction and non-fiction both. I had the opportunity of interviewing Mr. Ashwin Sanghi right here on this platform on Ahmedabad International Literature Festival, and he said something very pertinent. He said that fiction is a lie told so close to truth that one cannot make out the difference if it is truth or a lie. And that a well-told story always competes with the human bladder. If the reader needs to take a bathroom break but cannot put the book down, you've succeeded as a storyteller. So, coming back to the pure act of writing, we have discussed the joy of storytelling, listening to stories, reading stories, loving stories as children and as we grow up. But when it comes to writing, that's a craft as well as an art, right? I'm of the firm opinion that art requires inspiration, but craft requires commitment. One cannot do without the other. If you do commit to it without a sense of spiritual inspiration, that comes off as a haphazard work. And if you only have inspiration but do not commit to it, you would not have a completed book. So how do you see the writing process of your specific genre? How do you approach it? How do you see your fellow authors approaching it? And what does that say about the genre that you write for and the readers who love your work in that specific genre?
So Nivid, I think there are two parts to your question, your inspiration and how do you think your readers love your genre. So the first thing is inspiration. Where did it begin? Who was the inspiration? I'd say that as readers also we evolve with age. As writers we evolve. We always try to improve our writing. As readers also, while young we read, we go through children's stories and literature or mythologies which are narrated at homes. And later on, we develop our own taste. We develop a taste for a more mature contemporary fiction or other things, or non-fiction. And I'd say for me, my bringing up was in the town of Bhagalpur, Bihar. Although Bihar is, it is badly painted because of reasons I'm not going further here. But it has a rich culture, and many of the famous writers, I'll just give the names here, they belong to the city of Bhagalpur. You all are aware of Sharat Chand, you are aware of Pritish Nandi, you are aware of Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, you are aware of Banphul. Banphul was a pathologist by profession and he has a good name in Hindi writing. So all of them hailed from the city of Bhagalpur in Bihar. And in Bihar, we got Chandramukhi, the character of Chandramukhi, the house that belonged to Chandramukhi is still in ruins there. And so, from the very beginning, we were shown that this is the place. Shrikant, the story of Shrikant by Sharat Chand is also set in Bhagalpur. Devdas, the large part of it is set in Bhagalpur and a small part in Muzaffarpur district of Bihar. So वो होता है ना, गली गूचे में यहाँ पे शरद चंद्र यहाँ रहे थे, टैगोर आए थे, टैगोर के नाम से अभी भी वहाँ पे एक टीला कोठी है, he came there, it is now occupied by the university premises, but there's those are the iconic things, and that the writers who have had big names, they belong to Bhagalpur. So from the very beginning, a culture was inculcated in the citizens, and we got to know our culture. So we read all those stories. My pet name, though formal name is Manisha, but my pet name is Minnie. And in the beginning, when I got to learn, when the story of Kabuliwala was narrated to me, I identified with the character of Minnie because I was introduced to the story at 5 years of age. So I thought I am that Minnie. So the thing is, while reading good stories, you identify with the characters. And as you identify the characters, the stories somewhat have not done a course in creative writing. So maybe my technicalities in writing might not be as good as a person of English literature. But it is all by experience, by chance, I would say, that things we learned as we grew up. So this is what the inspiration part, and later on our house was loaded with books. Being from a professor's family, they had large shelves of books of all kinds. So, and at that time, because social media was not there, so books were the only form and the windows to the world where you could read international and national writers. So that is. The next thing, my genre and how it was taken to the how it is received by the readers. Well, so my first novel was a literary fiction, I would say, a contemporary fiction, because I was much influenced by the writings of Jhumpa Lahiri and Arundhati Rai. So that is in a very classic style. In that book, it is a multi-layered fiction. Natal Fault is a multi-layered fiction. That was also launched at the Ahmedabad Literature Festival in 2017. Nivid was there, I think. Yeah. So, Natal Fault is a contemporary fiction, and the story dates back to a span of almost 75 years. It starts at 2012 and it goes back to India of 1942s. And it has letters within it, that is the form of epistle. And it's a love story. It's a contemporary fiction. It is a socio-political strain too. And now, after Natal Fault was given to the readers, I found that there was a certain strata of younger readers who could not identify with the novels. So there, at that point, I evolved myself as a writer to a thriller fiction. And it's not that, and since I've been reading thrillers from the very beginning, Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes and all, and being a medical student, we have
I would answer your question in 3 steps. First, I know you are an English facilitator. So it starts from there. Dr. Indira Nityanandam is sitting here. Good morning, ma'am. People like Dr. Indira, people like Dr. Nivid, people like English teachers, which I had. It starts from there. See, writing, you cannot write anything and everything. Yeah, children do scribble on the wall. That is not called a fiction. You do need to have a good mentor who can correct you. Shraddha, this is not the tone. This is not the genre. You're mixing up things. Your emotions are bad. I know I was backlashed by my English teacher in my graduation very badly. She hailed from London and she used to teach me how to walk and enter in the class. I used to feel very humiliated. TBH, I used to literally feel that I should move from English literature many of the times. But she used to tell me, English is a language of class. When you are entering an English class, you should walk with that class, otherwise don't come. So the first stage is that. When we get good mentors, I'm very thankful to all the curriculums since last a decade that they've added story writing as a 10-mark question in the paper. Now you like it or you don't, you write it. That's the best thing. Now our curriculum is encouraging writers to become writers. That's the first stage. Second stage is that when you are writing something, first thing is that you should always consider yourself as a naive person. I have not created something which nobody else can do. Many of the people have done far brilliant work than me. Many of the people are doing much more good work than me and they will do. The thing is that what I am doing, I just have to check, can I do a little better than that what I did? When what I wrote yesterday, it should be a practice that you should read it again and then there'll be a correction. You'll read it again and then there'll be a correction. I know for many of my stories and for even my novel, I've changed the plot after reading it 5th time. So you are the first editor of your work. If you do not do it, believe me, you hire anybody, nobody can else do it because you feel your story. Third and the most important part, we are here as a very responsible people. Even if 2 people read our work, it is our responsibility to present good, constructive, and a very meaningful work. So research is the most important aspect of writing. For example, I am here to reveal something which is very fascinating as well. My current book, which is working on, and I think 2 books later, my book is coming, which is a story on domes. I'm writing a fiction on domes. Now, many of the people sitting here won't be knowing what are domes. Domes are the community. They are in Uttar Pradesh. They are given the responsibility of burning the fire for the cremation centers. Now, people do not know. Many of the people asked me, why do you want to write a story on them? Because I did research, and when I did research on them for around 6 months, there were so many stories which I wanted people to know. When I got, and this is such a sensitive topic that I wanted to get some government official, permission and all. And thankfully, I've received that permission yesterday evening itself on my mail. So I am officially entitled to announce that book today. And I'm announcing it that I'll be writing. Just one thing which I want to tell you, that what was one incident which inspired me to write on those people was one that there was one interview, it was on YouTube. The lady said that हम जो खाना खाते हैं ना वो उसी लकड़ी पे पकता है जिस पे लाशें जलती हैं. सिर्फ एक इस समवेयर कुछ स्क्रॉल कर रही थी मैं और ये मैंने सिर्फ एक स्टेटमेंट पढ़ा ना, it did not give me peace. All I wanted was जितना डोम लिटरेचर था I read, जितने people थे I called, all YouTube videos, everything. Then I did a different sort of research. So while writing, it is very important. See, I read this, I heard this line. I could have written a story on that. Many of the people would have liked it. Many of the people would have awarded. But did I do the justice to the topic? No. I would do justice to the topic when I know everything about it, when my readers would know more about it. Because I know when I write something, some Shraddha would be reading and they would want to create something more. So that's what is the purpose of an author. Thank you so much.
So Nivid, to your question, I think writing is a very intimate and personal process for an author. that's a space where you exist and your characters exist. And that is how the whole thing begins. Now, when I'm writing for nonfiction, one aspect which becomes very, very important is the research behind it. So the amount of effort you put in to collect all that information before you put it in the form of a fictional or a non-fictional style of writing, that is what matters. You know, last few days back, I was in a session with Vigyan Bharati of India, and there was a scientist who was saying that you have started to look like Mr. Raj Bihari Bose, because he had been researching a lot on him. And I was like thinking, like my children might say that when I'm researching on the ghost stories, I don't start looking like a ghost. So that's on a lighter note. And yes, the research and the perfection matters. Like what you choose to write and what you want to say. For example, I had been working on a few translations. Like when I heard that, you know, the world's first serial killer before Jack the Ripper even existed was a lady from Bengal. So, so those stories, they inspired, but they remained local. So that is where I thought that perhaps a translation work of those stories would bring it to a global forefront. So yes, nonfiction definitely requires your intimate research. Fiction definitely requires you to get into the character which you believe in. And that is how the genre develops through your stories.
Thank you so much, Nivid, for bringing this up, because this is such an enlightening question. So personally, as far as my writing style is concerned, I particularly follow NSD document, that is novel specification document. Like I have written my one research paper on how to write a fictional book, a book that is just imaginary. So in that, this is one of the basic skill set or book related life hack, that we have to be forming out a basic NSD document, novel specification document. First, that would be covering the basic bullet points about our characters, about the setting, about the theme, about the conflict in our story, because if we would not be giving utmost importance to all these basic milestones of a fictional book, then we would not be giving it a proper justice, right? And then, because justification and why logistic, to any reader and writer, both of these are important. Because justification and why logistic, like why we have selected that particular genre and how we would be justifying it. When our why is clear, then how becomes easy. It becomes easy peasy. And then our implementation plan, we would not be facing any kind of roadblocks, right? So that's why this because justification and why logistic, I personally follow. Whenever I get constructive feedback, constructive criticism, or creative dissatisfaction, also I would love to say. Sometimes for our own self, for readers, for writers, for artists, it is very important to welcome this creative dissatisfaction, because when our creative palette is not satisfied, when our creative juices are not satisfied, then that just pushes us to provide and give a proper justification to our story. As ma'am rightly said, that we do that particular even 11th hour or last minute editing. And that is absolutely right. It is not possible that we would be doing and producing our first draft in one go. We have to be giving n number of dry runs, and that is important. Lastly, I would love to say that I follow Ricimis strategy also. Ricimis, that is ritual of 60-minute solitude. Every day when we are on a particular mission, that yes, we have made up our mind that we are working on this particular book, we are done with our NSD document, and now when we are just preparing our first draft, our dry run, then this is important. Ritual of 60-minute solitude, because I know you all would be agreeing with me that it requires peace. Writing requires peace. It's just a harbinger of peace. And our mind has to be clear. If there has to be a clarity in mind and purity in heart, then only we would be able to make up all those things. And foremost level, our reader satisfaction and writer satisfaction, both of these are extremely important. It is not so, in the very initial phase, we would not think about how we would be publishing our book, how we would be those secondary practices. But to the foremost level, our writers' satisfaction is really, it just plays a pivotal role in our way, because if we would not be satisfied, we would not be getting that inner soul compassion, that soul satisfaction, that enlightened living, that yes, this theme we just tried to convey and we just did it. So whenever we are writing our book, this has to be our first step, that to just think about the central theme, the basic idea. Because the basic idea of literature is just that how it has to be providing us any type of life hack or personal competency to the public, to listeners, to audiences, right? So that's all. All of these are my life hacks.
Sure, sure.
And just to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
let's go. Yeah, let's-
So, while you are working on a particular genre, it's very important to read also. And Suhail and I, we were working on a title on Rabindranath Tagore. And at that time, there was a Bengali diary which he had written at the age of 16 years or 18 years when he was traveling to Europe. And it was in a very raw format. And he never published it because he was ashamed of it. But that is, a treasure trove. And for example, when I'm researching for Sri Rashbihari Bose, going through documents from the National Archives to read those police reports, the CID reports, the intercepted letters, they also have a pattern which enriches your mind when you are writing for a particular genre. And then you can create something which is more meaningful, I would say.
I just remembered one thing. When you were interviewing Mr. Sanghi, I was sitting there and you were asking them, you asked a question to him that don't you forget the stories. Then he had told one thing, that whatever ideas come to me, I have created a separate mail ID. I store in them, and then one fine day I sit, and I am following that since 3 years. So credits to you for asking that question so that I can become an author today.
So
Thank
good to
you,
hear,
Nivid.
so
Thank
good to
you.
Yeah, so I think I missed the point of research in my answer to your previous question. So I'd say that's a very interesting point, how I came up with the idea of Blue Jeans. Because Blue Jeans is a thriller suspense and has characters which we generally don't encounter in our day-to-day lives. And it is fully set in Goa with the characters mostly of Goan origin and even Anglo-Indians and foreigners, because since Goa is a tourist destination, so it has all kinds of population. So the idea, the seed of inspiration was the protagonist's gene. I'd say that when I was promoting Natal Fault, it was 1 year to it, and then one day, it is a fact that I had a dream, and there I visualized Jean, a blonde, beautiful blonde, and then some inner voice said that she should be the protagonist of your next novel. Now the thing is that we don't encounter a blonde in our day-to-day life, and how can you build a story with a blonde as a central character or protagonist of your novel? So I placed her as a tourist in Goa. Since I've been Goa to several times, so I was well aware of the life and culture there. And then the research part began into the lifestyle and history of Portugal, because Goa has altogether a different history from entire India, as you all agree, because it was under the Portuguese rule and not under the British rules. So even the names of the characters, like the surnames, the Gomes, Fernandez, and Miranda, and the Anglo-Indians and the foreigners, along with the Indians also, we have Abdul, we have Lakshman, we have all sorts of characters are there in the novel. So the thing is, and the culture, the word restaurant, it is pronounced as restaurant, it is pronounced as restaurant, it is pronounced as restaurant, or in the Portuguese, it is pronounced as restaurante. Okay, so I had to go through all the things of the Portuguese culture before penning down this novel. So research part is, of course, very important. And I remember my first interesting conversation with Suhail when I approached him with the first draft, I think only first 2 chapters and the synopsis. The thing is question, because, with the traditional publishers, they want generally a fiction where people can identify with the characters. So in the beginning, Suhail was skeptic, as he'll agree. I said, why are your names sounding so I mean, uncommon, which are generally in the mainstream of bestsellers fiction. Normally, we have a college girl or someone from North India or a Sardarji or someone Bengali or something. But I said that since the setting of the novel is in Goa, so naturally I have to take care of the names and characters so as to seem that the thing is authentic. So as an author, we have the responsibility to study and research the culture and lifestyle of the place where the setting is placed. And I'm very happy that people have loved this fiction because of a new flavor. They are appreciating it as something which has not been given before. Because many of the writers, they attempted thrillers, but not with such kind of a dangerous track. So that's what. Thank you so much.
I have one anecdote that I remember from this conversation. Professor Mukulika Banerjee has a PhD in anthropology from the University of Oxford. And when she was doing her master's at the Delhi School of Economics, her professor had a lot of students coming up to him and asking him, "Sir, PhD karna hai. Sir, kitab likhni hai." And he used to ask just one question in return. Do you sleep well at night? रात को नींद ठीक से आती है? And if the student answered yes, the professor's response was, फिर आपको PhD करने की या किताब लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. If you cannot sleep at night, if there is a question, or if there is a theme or an idea that does not let you sleep at night, that's when you know that you are dedicated enough to an idea to write a book. That's what I see reflecting in all of their stories, in all of their passions and fascinations with the subjects that they're writing about. We began with a question, how to write stories that move and matter. I believe that the conclusion is very evident, that first, those stories need to move you. They need to matter to you. If it doesn't matter to the author, if it doesn't move the author, it has very little chance of moving or mattering to the readers. With that, I leave the floor open for a couple of quick audience questions. We are running short of time. We would just have, I believe, time for one audience question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabhi ko namaskar. I'm Dr. Kaveri, founder of a literary platform, Pretty Much Everything. Hello, panel. So, मेरा सवाल ये है कि, how important it is for an author to stick to a particular genre, and if the author wants to switch to a different writing style or a genre, should that author wait unless he prepares or he has his own readers base? So how important it is, and at the same time, how risky it is?
Whoever wishes to go first.
I think it's risky, I would say, from the perspective of being published, because writing and getting published are two very different ball games. And sometimes you get marked as an author of a particular genre. Then when you're trying to switch on to any other genre, the publishers might judge you that kya ye dusre genre pe likh payenge? But I think it's you who has to believe that I can write this. So like I said, I began with writing children's fiction. Then I moved on into biographies. Then we did paranormal folk tales. So all these have to have a flavor in them which would, click with your audiences and with the publishers also. But it is you have to believe in that. So it's difficult to do because every genre has its own speciality. So you have to gather that expertise, and then only you can, master the art.
So what you suggest is only after establishing yourself, known in the writing fraternity, or maybe getting that confidence, so one can easily switch or maybe try a different genre. This is what you're trying to say?
I think you can, write in a particular genre, but that doesn't mean that your same audience would be willing to read that other genre also.
Yes.
But yes, if your writing style is something which I think, like, if it's a simplicity of language which inspires your readers to read, then definitely you would have a reader base over there.
Kaveri, I would suggest you should take risk. Without, maybe, just maybe, by doing that, by taking that risk, you can become an established author, which you are not. So it is very important to take risk while you're writing, and it's only your heart which should speak. First thing is that you should not look for your readers. You should create your readers.
Right.
While we will be writing, thank you so much.
That's well
Thank,
said. That's
thank you.
well
I
said.
said it all.
And I agree with Shraddha. And I think we have a large population, and you can always find your readers. You can find different people loving different flavors. Of course, as for me also, I have written poetry, I've written short stories, I've written novels, and both the novels are entirely different. For my first novel, I had the mature kind of readers, and for the second, I find that the younger readers and those interested in thriller fiction. So it's you always have to follow your heart, because if you are in thoughts, oh, what to write, stick by rules, where should I make this, should I stick to this analysis, it leads to a analysis paralysis or the writer's block.
Yes,
So
well said. Yes,
if you are in that kind of mind, you will never be able to put down your thoughts to paper. So my thing is, follow your heart. Even I have been told that, why don't you write non-fiction, it sells more. Okay, that is the trend now. As a doctor, I can write on health. Because I am into traveling, I can write on travel. But the thing is, my heart is not putting that on paper. My heart is putting fiction on paper. Yes, I can explore different types of genre because that is what my heart says. And I think only that kind of writing is successful, where you put your heart and soul to it. So never be afraid that who will be my readers, who will read until you put it down. How will you know the result? That's what.
Okay. Thank you. And Nivid, I must really say this openly now, that really enjoyed your moderation, because that also displayed your deep knowledge on the subject. So that was very refreshing.
Thank you. I
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
panel.
it. Thank you. And with that, we conclude the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for.
No, we won't. I have a question for you. See
Do we have time for this?
one question, answer, you repeat.
Yeah, okay.
The thing is that while moderating, while asking questions, while reading, we are giving birth to an author. When are we seeing you as an author?
Well, I believe that writing in itself is an act of satisfaction for me. The medium matters less than the writing itself. So I have been writing pretty prolifically in terms of diversifying my own profile as a writer. But book very soon. Let's
Thank
hope
you
so.
so
Let's
much.
hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, we conclude the session. Thank you so much for joining us on a lovely Sunday morning. I hope that you all enjoyed. Please give them a huge round of applause for their insight, their knowledge, and for participating so dearly in the candid conversation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Concluding this session, I would just like to say that in the end, we are all just stories. Yeah. Okay, I would like to call upon Uma Shankar Yadav sir to kindly felicitate the panel.
Before that, I will like to call Suhail Madhuji and Ajay Chaudhary Sahab, IPS, who has come from Delhi, to have a photograph with these people with their books. Wanting to do it, please come in the front. This book is something very patriotic. We have been trying to do it. This is on our freedom fighter. In fact, he has done a lot of things. We don't need to tell anything about him. Mr. Ras Bihari Bose. That's a wonderful book. He will tell a bit more about it, and then we can take photographs.
Thank you so much, Uma Shankarji, for introducing the book to everyone. Shri Raj Bihari Bose is one of the stalwart freedom fighters who, has a place in the top 4 people who had got us our freedom. And he's the man behind the Azad Hind Fauj who had curated it and then handed it over to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So he's a man which maybe we don't know much about because he had been self-exiled in Japan. But I think please do read this book so you can know about the immense contribution he had towards our independence.
Good morning, everyone. So I think the genesis of this book happened, and very interestingly, that जब हम बोस बोलते हैं तो सबसे पहले हमें सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी याद आते हैं. जब हम उसके बाद बोस बोलते हैं तो हमें स्पीकर्स याद आते हैं. So point is that why are we forgetting someone who's done so much for the country? So the working title of this book was initially The Other Boss, and very happy that it has done so well. And in fact the descendants of Mr. Ras Bihari Bose have also supported this wonderful endeavor. And concludingly, and obviously on a lighter note, I'd just like to say that Ahmedabad Lit Fest international तो है ही, but national integration भी इनके जैसे कोई नहीं कर सकता, because इस book के author बंगाली हैं, subject के नाम में बिहारी है और launch गुजराती कर रहे हैं. Of course.
So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Uma Shankarji, for providing us this platform of Ahmedabad Literature Festival and putting forth our works, creative work. And I'm thankful too that because of this gathering, I could meet my literary agent for the first time. Because this is the first time I and Sonia are meeting up in person. And because until now it was only on the emails.
So is Suhail Mathur a literary agent for many of us? You can interact him later on. Thank you so much.
Manisha, yes, you may not be knowing, maybe not today, but yesterday I was promoting your book all through the day because, well, I was attired in blue jeans. Promoting it today. Thank you so much. Thank you.